Why do we carve so many wood spirits? I must have carved at least 20 of them. Like this guy, and this guy, and this guy, and you get the point. So why aren't we encouraged to carve human faces on other things? And it got me thinking of those fantasy-esque crescent moons. So today, we're going to make a moon spirit. I drew up this template to help me out, and we're going to start by cutting out the silhouette on the bandsaw. Then we'll grab the knife and begin to rough out the shape. Sometimes even when predominantly carving with a knife, I find it handy to have some little chisels. So I've got like a little kind of palm gouge there, and then this really cheap little, I don't even know what you would call that, like a chisel knife type thing. But I find it really useful for when getting in, especially this head, because you know we're having to get in these little like tight places, and it's hard with these curves coming up here as well. One other thing I was thinking about actually is that with a carving like this, the grain direction can be quite important. I was thinking of having the grain going straight up like this so that these bits were quite strong. The only problem with that is that I would then be carving the face into the end grain, and not only would that be a lot harder, but I think it wouldn't look very good either. So I actually have orientated the grain so it's kind of at an angle, so we have some extra strength in these bits, but also this isn't end grain. But you know, it depends on the person and what you want to do. That is the way I felt like doing it, because I thought it would be the best way, but I guess we'll find out if I snap anything off, which might happen in a second. Just a quick note to say that if you're enjoying the video, please like it and subscribe if you want to subscribe, and also comment. I'd like to hear your thoughts on what carvings you've made and maybe what carvings you'd like to see me make on the channel. It's always interesting to interact with people on YouTube. Thanks very much. I follow a lot of Japanese woodcarvers on Instagram, and I'm not sure what it is about Japanese wood carving, but a lot of them always seem to have this really nice little textured surface. And I've seen in a few of their videos that they achieve it with a tool that's sort of similar to this or similar to a gouge. Now this one I've got is pretty cheap and it's not very good. Plus I've sharpened it pretty badly and put the wrong kind of edge on it, but I can never seem to get it very sharp because I think the metal's kind of crap. So if anyone knows what this tool is called, and also a decent make, preferably Japanese one, I'd love to hear what that is. But I have found I can replicate it somewhat using just a gouge. So I'm just going to show you what I mean, and then I'm going to cover the whole moon in this interesting little texture. So you can see the kind of quite large cuts here that were taken out by the knife, all these facets here, which I don't mind. I quite like the look of that, but I much prefer the look of these tiny little cuts here, and they've just been taken, or they've been created, sorry, by using a gouge like this and just doing this kind of little movement. Now the good thing about this is not only does it add this really interesting texture to the carvings, but also it helps you get rid of lots of little imperfections because you're basically just taking off little bits of wood at a time. Obviously the bad thing is if you want to cover the whole thing in the same texture, you're going to be doing an extra sort of 100 or a few hundred or maybe a few or a couple of thousand cuts on the wood, but I think it's going to be worth it, and I think when we put the finish and the paint on it later, it's really going to show through there, so let's get that done. Now what we've got to do is seal the wood with some thinned out varnish, and then I will paint it with some thinned out oil paints, and we'll see how it turns out. So now before I put the paint on, I want to seal the wood. You don't always have to do this, this is just a thing that I like to do. Normally I would use a can of polyurethane varnish, not water-based, and I would use some white spirits or mineral spirits and dilute it 50-50 to paint on there as a kind of a wood sealer, and then I'd give it like 2 or maybe 3 coats, and then I'd paint on it, which is exactly what I did for the Prometheus carving. But in this case, I found that I was wasting a lot of varnish from the tin. It was really messy. It was hard to seal the tin back up and have it so that the finish, you know, kept its same consistency over time. So I thought, well, what if I can get something in a bottle and in effect do the same thing? So I did a bit of research and I landed on sanding sealer, because it's basically just shellac and alcohol. And then I looked up online what you can dilute it with, and obviously the answer is alcohol, but apparently you need a certain type of alcohol. So I did use isopropyl to test it out on something, and that worked out okay. But then I looked it up online, and apparently there's too much water content or something in isopropyl alcohol, which means that sometimes it can make the finish a bit cloudy, so I didn't want to risk that. So the next thing that I came across said that you should use methylated spirit or denatured alcohol to thin sanding sealer rather than isopropyl alcohol. I don't know that for sure. I looked at 3 or 4 different forums all saying the same or similar things, and then I tested it out on this little house here, if I can get that to focus. And I did 2 coats on it. You can see I've got the kind of finish I want, which is that kind of semi-gloss, kind of not super shiny or anything like that, but just a semi kind of gloss finish. And this was 2 coats with the meths and the sanding sealer. Now I know the meths is purple, but apparently they say online that doesn't matter, and I know it doesn't matter because I tested it, and this looks fine. So we're going to do the same thing to the moon now. We're going to mix the sanding sealer and the meths, I don't know, maybe 40-60, with the 40 being the alcohol and the 60 being the sanding sealer. I don't know. I'm just going to do it until I feel like it's the right consistency. Then we'll paint on one coat, see how it looks, paint on another if I need it, and keep going until I get the desired effect, and then we'll paint it with oil paints. While we're painting this small sculpture, I just want to say a big thanks to my supporters on Patreon, and a special thanks to my newest patron, Economondos, who has joined at the wood chips tier and has a great name as well. I appreciate you very much, guys. Thank you very much. If you hadn't seen the video earlier that I made about the paint shelf, you may not know much about these paints. This is a technique I actually got from a woodcarver called Fred Zavadil. You can search him up on YouTube. And what these are is they're diluted oil paints. So to try and save on oil paint and to save on spirits and stuff like that, and to make less mess generally, I mixed up my own different colours of oil paints. So I've got like 25 different colours in these little jars. And these have been on the shelf for about 2 months, 2 or 3 months, and they're still fine. Hopefully they'll be fine for a long time, but I'm not sure how long this kind of stuff lasts, but I guess we'll see. I should also add that I made a recent community post asking the subscribers what they wanted from the channel, because after all, this channel is just about as much about you guys as it is about the stuff that I do. And it was an overwhelming yes to carving tutorials and wood sculptures. So we're going to focus a bit more on that this year, hence all the templates that I've got out on my Patreon. If you like the look of this carving and you want to download the template and give it a go yourself, then if you join at the Bendy Boy Society tier on Patreon or YouTube memberships, you will get access to all those templates to download and print off, and then just go crazy. I tried a bit of a different paint job this time with lots of different gradients and fading and subtle colour changes, and I'm actually really pleased with this paint job, and I'm looking forward to doing it on my next sculpture as well, because we're going to carve a sun spirit as well to go along this side this one. I don't think it'll be the next video, but it's coming up. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, guys. I appreciate your support, and I will catch you next time.